In a world full of ordinary dreams, one young man believed he could change how humanity lives, thinks, and connects. But before fame, before Apple, before billions, he had nothing that the world respects. Born in 1955, Steve Jobs was adopted, a detail that would silently shape his entire identity. Even as a child, he saw the world differently, but most people thought he was strange. He dropped out of college just 6 months in, but that decision changed everything. While others chased degrees, he chased curiosity, creativity, and freedom. Then came a meeting that would change the world forever. Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak. In a simple garage, an empire was quietly being born. Their first computer wasn't perfect, but it was revolutionary. But no one knew yet. This small idea would soon become a global revolution. The garage project was no longer just a hobby. People were beginning to notice something different. Orders slowly began arriving. For the first time, the dream started looking real. But there was one major problem. They had ideas, but almost no money. Most people would have quit right there. They did the opposite. Every setback became fuel. Every obstacle became motivation. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Apple was growing faster than anyone expected. The company that began in a garage was becoming a serious business. For the first time in his life, Steve Jobs was achieving everything he had imagined. But just when everything seemed perfect, disaster was quietly approaching. As Apple grew larger, disagreements started growing too. The same company he helped create was slowly changing around him. Some believed he was a genius. Others believed he was impossible to work with. The pressure became enormous. Expectations were higher than ever before. Inside Apple, a silent power struggle was beginning. The company he loved was no longer fully under his control. Then came the meeting that would change his life forever. The unthinkable happened. Steve Jobs was pushed out of Apple. Imagine building something from nothing and then losing it. Many people expected him to disappear. Many thought his story was over. But this was not the end of Steve Jobs. In many ways, it was the beginning. For a while, Steve Jobs didn't know what came next. The company he had built was gone, and the future looked uncertain. Most people would have accepted defeat. Steve Jobs began searching for a new purpose. Instead of running from failure, he studied it. He wanted to understand what went wrong. That painful setback became one of the most valuable lessons of his life. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He started over from zero. In 1985, he launched a new company called Next. The world was watching closely. Some expected another failure. But Steve Jobs no longer cared about proving people wrong. He focused on building something extraordinary. For the first time, failure was no longer his enemy. It had become his teacher. And while the world looked at Apple, Steve Jobs was quietly preparing for an even bigger comeback. While building Next, Steve Jobs made another decision that seemed insignificant at the time. That decision would eventually change the entertainment industry forever. He invested in a small animation company that few people believed in. Its name was Pixar. At first, Pixar struggled. Money was tight and success seemed far away. But Steve Jobs had learned something important. Great things often take longer than expected. Then came a breakthrough that nobody saw coming. Pixar released Toy Story. It became a historic success. The man many people had written off was suddenly winning again. Meanwhile, Apple was facing serious problems. The company was losing direction. The company that once pushed Steve Jobs away now needed help. And after years away, Steve Jobs was about to return to Apple. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple, he didn't come back to a thriving company. He came back to a company standing dangerously close to collapse. Many experts believed Apple wouldn't survive much longer. Some predicted the company's end was only months away. But Steve Jobs saw something that others couldn't see. He saw potential hidden beneath the chaos. His first step was simple but brutal. He eliminated distractions and focused on what truly mattered. The changes were unpopular. Some people resisted. Others thought he was making a huge mistake. But Steve Jobs wasn't trying to make everyone comfortable. He was trying to save Apple. Then Apple introduced a product that felt completely different from anything people had seen before. That product was the iMac. It shocked the industry. Customers loved it. Sales exploded. Apple finally had momentum again. The company that was once expected to die was suddenly alive again. Apple was no longer fighting for survival. Now it was preparing to change entire industries. Steve Jobs believed technology should feel simple, beautiful, and powerful at the same time. Then came a product that would transform the music industry forever. The iPod arrived. Suddenly, thousands of songs could fit into your pocket. People loved it. Apple was no longer just a computer company. But Steve Jobs wasn't finished. He believed something even bigger was possible. For years, phones, music players, and internet devices existed separately. Steve Jobs wanted to combine them into one. In 2007, he walked onto a stage and introduced the iPhone. The world changed almost overnight. The same man who had once been fired from his own company had now transformed multiple industries. From a small garage dreamer to one of the most influential innovators in history, Steve Jobs had reached heights few people could imagine. Millions of people now carried technology shaped by his vision in their pockets every day. But behind the success, another battle was quietly beginning. In 2003, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with a serious illness. For the first time, the man who had challenged entire industries was forced to confront something he could not control. Yet even during difficult times, he continued building, creating, and inspiring. His greatest lesson was never about technology. It was about courage. He often reminded people that time is limited and every day matters. His story proved that failure is not the opposite of success. It is often part of the journey. The world admired his products, but the real legacy was the mindset behind them. Long after products become outdated and technologies evolve, ideas continue to live on. Steve Jobs understood that true impact is measured by what you inspire in others. His story was never really about computers or phones. It was about believing in a vision before anyone else could see it. Every great achievement begins as an idea that seems impossible. The difference between dreamers and achievers is simple. Achievers take action. You don't need perfect conditions. You only need the courage to begin. The road will be difficult. People will doubt you. Failure will visit more than once. But every challenge you overcome becomes part of your strength. Steve Jobs was not successful because he never failed. He was successful because he never stopped. The question is not whether your dream is possible. The question is whether you're willing to fight for it. Because somewhere in the world right now, another dreamer is starting with nothing, just like Steve Jobs once did. The only question is, will that dreamer be you?